All right. I understand that you had some concerns about the generalized anxiety disorder. So I'm going to kind of hit these points. We're going to start with talking about the diagnosis, what you might see. Then I'll also talk about some different contributing factors, stress that can cause this, um, and different structures within the brains and brain chemicals that can cause this to manifest. And then we'll talk about why this is correct. So generalized anxiety disorder is basically a chronic and excessive worrying that interferes with more than one area of life. And it's very hard to control. It can affect people emotionally, it can affect cognition, like how they think, it can manifest as physical symptoms, it can change their behaviors. So, and we know, like, especially being 16, it's hard. You have a lot of pressures. You're worried about school, your friends, like, tons of homework, demands, things like that. It's a lot. And it can affect relationships, it can affect family, it can affect your ability to focus on sleep, your ability to focus in school. It can affect all areas of your life. So getting timely intervention and getting this handled is very important. So generalized anxiety disorder, generally we do not diagnose that until it's been so it's usually excessive anxiety or worry about the variety of events like we talked about, and it happens more days than not, okay, for at least 6 months. This is where it feels like it's uncontrollable. You can't make it do anything to make it better. So some of the symptoms that you might see would be restlessness, you'd feel fatigue, you'd have a hard time concentrating, you feel irritable sometimes, muscle tension. I know a lot of people got muscle tension all in here. They start to do this. And then chronic pain is another thing. Huge thing is sleep, lack of sleep. It can interfere with sleep. So, but those are just some of the things. You also can end up, some of the physical symptoms too, are like, we talked about the muscle tension, but you can also have restlessness, sweating, trembling, palpitations, your stomach can feel sick, end up with headaches, things like that. Some of the behavior things, like you might notice you're really like struggling in school. Your grades are starting to suffer. You can withdraw socially. You don't want to interact with your friends. All these things are all signs we might see. So, things that can contribute. This is a variety of different things. There can be a genetic thing, a family history of anxiety. And of course, like your temperament in general can always be a thing, but also environmental factors. Like if you have chronic stress or any kind of, you've been exposed to any kind of conflict or abuse or any kind of socioeconomic challenges, things like that, all this can contribute to it, right? And that can be like things at school, that can be so many things. Social media issues, feeling pressure with social media, things like that can all be contributing to this. Also, some of the things that can contribute is we actually have brain chemicals, what we call like neurotransmitters, and some of the ones that do that primarily affect it can be a thing called GABA or GABA. It is what we call a kind of a braking system of the brain. So when you start to get hyperactive and you're really starting to get like anxious, GABA can't work as well. Like it doesn't work. So it can it generally helps to treat that excessive nervousness within the brain. It gets released, but in general anxiety disorder, we don't have as much of it. Serotonin is another thing. We've all heard about serotonin. That can cause, that can contribute to just instability with your mood. It can cause anxiety, and it can affect your ability to concentrate. Norepinephrine is another one. This thing is when we think like the fight or flight, like you're getting chased by a tiger, you think of like that norepi. This is like that thing that's going to keep you alert, that it's going to keep you in a state of like hypervigilance almost. But during generalized anxiety disorder, we have like a higher level of this, and it can cause you to feel restless and sweat and tremble and have all those physical symptoms that you get with anxiety. That comes along with it. Another part of it is glutamate. Glutamate is what we call the excitatory, like neurotransmitter or brain chemical. And they're saying that could possibly cause an imbalance of different types of neurotransmitters. It affects it all, especially the GABA and glutamate. They work together. So those two brain chemicals, if they're off, they can actually lead to developmental issues as well, like neurodevelopmental. So it's really, really important. Those neurotransmitters are all contributing factors and things that can cause it. There are structural changes and functioning within the brain. So it doesn't necessarily, I like say this, it doesn't mean there's brain damage or anything like that. These are just different structures within the brain that people with generalized anxiety disorder suffer from. So there's a part of the brain called your prefrontal cortex. And this is the kind of thing that, this is what helps us with decision making. This is what helps with emotion, attention. And when you have generalized anxiety disorder, the way that your prefrontal cortex works isn't regulated as well. There's issues with emotional regulation, and that can impact how you respond to emotion. Another thing that they've shown is your prefrontal cortex, the part we were talking about, and your amygdala. Your amygdala is like that survival brain, right? Part of the brain that's about survival. So they've shown that, especially in a younger population, in adolescents, that there's issues with that connection in there, with them talking and communicating with each other. So that's another thing that can be structurally going on. They've also shown, like, when they do brain scans, like MRIs, the fluid that's in your brain that kind of keeps everything, transmitting through the other neurotransmitters, there's a slight volume reduction in the sides and the middle of that prefrontal cortex that we talked about. There's fluid loss within there. So it's a bunch of different parts that are all interconnected within the brain. So it's the actual brain chemicals, and it's the systems that regulate within the brain. All of that is a contributing factor. Let's see. So there is a lot of different things that we can do to help. Their studies have been shown that cognitive behavioral therapy is one of the very best things that I recommend. Everybody should do cognitive behavioral therapy. It'll help you understand your thoughts and your feelings and how to handle that. And it helps you figure out how to handle stress. That's not something that we're taught in school, right? So very important. We can do some medications depending on how severe, your symptoms are feeling. We can definitely do that. But definitely the cognitive behavioral therapy. And I'll give you a bunch of tools for your toolbox to help you. The big thing that you're going to feel with generalized anxiety disorder is you feel it's almost like the brain is extra sensitive, and you'll look for things to go wrong even when you're safe. So that's why that CBT therapy, that cognitive behavioral therapy, helps. It teaches you how to create new pathways in the brain so that you're able to process things better. They've actually been shown like prognosis is really good with cognitive behavioral therapy. There's actual shown like, yes, we can do pharmacological stuff. This can generally be what we call a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, like a Zoloft, and that helps that serotonin within the brain kind of stay there, work a little bit better, so that it can help keep us calm and kind of manage our emotions a little bit better. But this is very treatable with ongoing, treatment with CBT, maybe some medications. You really can learn to manage these symptoms well. So, and that is everything. If you have any other questions, let me know.